Hey y'all, welcome to the video today. I know we've been out for a little while. I had to take a step back, take care of some life stuff going on. It just was too much going on at the time, and videos was the easiest thing to cut out. I was still filming videos during the time, but video editing was just out of the question. So some of the videos you see coming out may kind of be out of order, but I don't know that you'll really be able to tell. Anyway, sorry about the noise. Neighbors cutting grass across the street. Not a whole lot I can do about it right now. I'm on a bit of a time crunch. I'm trying to get this thing up and running to go knock out a big stump. I went yesterday and started on the job. Really, I should have just taken this and done the entire job, but I'll bring you in for a close-up real quick. So issues we're having on the last job, and that's one of the videos I was going to get out, and it might seem out of order because I'm going to fix the issues today. But slapping the chain, this chain was slapping and just bouncing all over because this is not the bearings on the mid shaft are not holding tight. The locking nut came off on the top, and as many times I tighten this thing down, it only holds for a few minutes before it lets go, and then this bearing starts actually rocking off. This down here needed to be replaced, but I was waiting forever. These two nuts are like welded together, and I can loosen it up to move these, and I can tighten it down to hold it, but I cannot back the locking nut off of the front nut. As weird as that sounds, that needed to be replaced. So today I'm going to take this one out. I'm going to cut this one completely off because I don't know how else to get these nuts off. Take this one out. I know it comes out because I was watching it come out the other day while I was grinding. It's a scary thought, but yep, so I'm gonna take this off, take it to the store, see if we can find some more to replace it. I wanted to go to Lowe's, but I don't think Lowe's is gonna have that big of a bolt. Agri Supply is usually my go-to for something that size. This hydraulic box right here has vibrated so much, it has knocked every nut and bolt loose. These two on the top are just constantly walking off, tightening them up constantly and having to retighten them every 10 minutes or so, and then come to find out that it's rocked these on the bottom loose as well. So all four bolts that hold this hydraulic box up here just loose, and it's rattling everything. It actually rattled to the point the other day that the hydraulic filter backed off. I put these things on hand tight, and it was up there pretty tight, but it still managed to back off and start pouring hydraulic fluid out. That's how bad this thing is shaking. But part of the shaking that knocked this loose was this bearing here not holding and this chain getting loose. So what happens is when this thing spins, it's pulling tight on this back side and sending this chain down the front side, and it pulls this gear. Whenever it meets resistance, all that slack, think of it like lag in a turbo, when it finally hits something, when it finally hits the stump and causes resistance in it, this slap in the chain causes all kinds of issues, and we're losing power with that slack being there. So today, really quick, hopefully what we're going to do is replace that bolt, lock tight all them other bolts down, and pull the master link out of this chain, which I found the other day, you guys saw, and see if we can't shorten this chain up pretty good. I think it's pretty worn out to the point that we need to take a section out. That top nut was actually pretty tight. I put it up there with the adjustable wrench a couple times, and then the last time I put the adjustable wrench up there and really jumped on it, and that's when it finally held for a good amount of time until I broke it loose right then, actually. So like I told y'all, that bottom one is locked up. It's loose. You can actually wiggle it, but I cannot break them two nuts loose. So like I said, the plan is we're going to take this top one off, take it to the store, see if we can find a nut to match and another bolt to match, because we're going to cut the bottom one off. Bolts out, we're going to go ahead and take it to the store and get something to match it, because that's basically what's holding us up. Is I need this secured, and then we'll tighten this up to see if the chain will be tight enough. If it is, we'll roll on. If not, then we'll work on pulling that master link out, and then we'll also tighten these up. But that's basically it for right now. I'm gonna run to the store and catch you guys back in a little bit. All right, so I'm back from town, and I went to Tractor Supply. I figured they would have bigger bolts. I didn't go to Agri Supply. That's in the different town that I wanted to go to. I went to the town right up the road where everything's kind of close together. I had a lot of banking stuff I had to take care of and run some other errands, and in that town everything's pretty close together and I can knock it out within an hour versus going to the big city in the other direction where AgriSupply is. Well, it'd take 2 hours to do what I could do in 1 hour. So I did not get a bolt. I went to Tractor Supply. They had 3/4 bolts, but not in carriage bolts. The carriage bolts only went up to 1/2 inch. They had regular bolts that went up to 3/4, so I was able to get nuts. I've got all 4 nuts that I need. Actually, that would give me a spare because I do have that 1 nut left over for the top bolt. However, top bolt's not really the concern. I can tighten that down pretty easy with these. The concern is this bottom bolt stays loose, so the alignment on this mid shaft is hard to do because it does not stay where you lock it in at very well. I have put a torch on this. I think I did it in another video, not that I published it, but I did it in another video, and I put a piece of metal between this and the bearing here and stuck a small soldering torch on it. Less heat, but still ended up getting the bearing pretty hot and still could not break the nut loose. I don't want to put the actual torch on it just because I feel like that's way too much heat for this area. I'm trying to make these bearings last as long as possible. You probably heard me say these things are $480 a piece from Vermeer, so I'm trying not to ruin them best that I can. They're pretty sloppy. As soon as you put grease comes pouring out, the seals are gone. So I'm pumping a 1/2 tube of grease between the 4 of these bearings every time I go out. It's just what you get with an older sloppy machine, but it pays for itself very easily. It's a 1/2 stick of grease is nothing. But to get this bottom one off here, I think what I'm going to do is get this bottom one off here. I think what I'm going to do is take the air die grinder, and put a little cutoff wheel on it and come in and slice the sides of the nuts and see if that releases any pressure. Do this without ruining the bolt, because if I ruin the bolt, I'm gonna have to go get another bolt. Like I said, I would think AgriSupply has one, but I'm not 100% sure. So we're gonna go ahead and try this now in the hopes that I don't destroy it, and if I do, I gotta go pick my kid up from daycare in a little bit, and his daycare is kind of in that direction, so it's not the end of the world. Oh, that hurt. All right, so when we went to loosen everything up, you can feel the bolt wiggle. There was a lot of wiggle room, so I know that this wasn't really holding anything in place, especially since the top bolt is out. It was really wiggling, but the 2 nuts seem to be fused together. I'll get you a close-up in a minute, but it looks like that cutting we did made enough relief on it, or provided direct heat enough that I was able to break it loose. I'm not doing anything that I didn't do before, and I actually put the big Milwaukee 1400 foot-pound impact on it and it wouldn't budge. So the grinder definitely made a difference on that front nut. Now let's see if we can get lucky and pop this second one off. We get this loose. All right, I'm gonna go back to the ratchet. Let's see what we do with this. All right, hammer time. This impact's worth every bit of money I spent on it. The whole Milwaukee line is just invaluable. From the light towers, it's that time of year. I don't know if you can tell. The sun doesn't even really hit my yard. It's coming through the trees. It never goes straight up. It always stays behind the trees, and I get what comes through. So when you're watching, you're going to get different parts of the sun being in my face, on the camera, constantly in the shade, you name it. That's how it is in the winter. And with these darker nights at 5 o'clock, I can set the light tower up, do all the grinding I want to do as long as I want to at night, as long as I got batteries. And then the other tools, I mean, it's just, the Milwaukee lineup's an incredible system. All right, so what I'm also going to do is go ahead and break this side loose. We'll take all the we'll take the slack adjuster, back it all the way out, get as much slack as this thing can give us for the chain, and then we'll work on pulling the master link out. Alright, so we've gotten pretty lucky so far. The bottom nuts broke apart, came off. That loosened that whole side up, and it did not damage the bolt, so we'll be able to reuse the bolt with the new nuts. We came to this side, loosened this up because this has to drop down in order to put slack in the chain here. You can see we got a whole bunch of slack. So got all that done. You might see me over here picking at some stuff. Got my little pick out. The bottom bolt down here, I don't know if you can see it, I can't see the lens or the screen, but this was full of this powdered gunk here. I wanted to clean that out while there was some room in there. I did try to hammer the bolt all the way through, but it's snagging up a little bit right there. I don't want to damage the threads, and I know that this is a lot of weight sitting on top of it, so obviously that plays into it. I don't want to undo it. I'm just going to leave it like it is, especially with this side not having anything holding that back. So we do have slack in it now. Now we're going to come over here and mess with the chain here. Not going to lie, this is my first time dealing with this, and I probably should have put the master link on the bottom before I released tension up top, just so that it was already down here. But this is my first time messing with chain. This is also double roller chain, but we pull the master link out, we come back, we grind these two pins, they should come out, and then the master link goes back in. It does take a pretty big section of chain out, but as you can see, we have plenty of slack to play with right now. There we go. Alright, master link is out. Alright, so I'm going to take the air grinder, I'm going to grind the end of these two pins here, and that will allow me to hammer it that way. I don't want to grind this side because then I get back in here with the hammer and I'm constantly hitting the wheel, so we're going to grind this side, push the pins out that way. There's no going back, so if I screw this up, I'm hunting down a chain on Friday. I work at the fire department tomorrow, so that means Friday when I get off, when I told this guy to come back and finish grinding the stump, looks like I'm gonna be hunting a chain down if this doesn't work out like I hope it does. Now the real fun begins to see if we can get this tightened back up. Believe it or not, it is going right back in. Wow. Was not expecting that. Went too far, missed the back link. Back it up, homie. Back it up. Now we just have to adjust all this. Alright, so that went back together surprisingly well. I mean, it worked out perfect. With just that little bit of slack right there, these were able to line up right around that sprocket and slide right back in. Wow. I was not expecting to go this easy. I really was not. I was expecting to have an issue with the bolt up top. I was expecting to have an issue with this and have to pull these off and having an issue with these bolts. But today is looking like a good day overall for working on the equipment. So, man, I was not expecting to work out good. So, on the inside master link here, I've still got to put a wrap around these. I'm using MIG wire. You may have seen in my other video if I have it up, but I just take MIG wire and wrap it around that lip right there, and that basically holds these in. There's normally a little link that you slide in, a metal tab, but I don't have one right now, and this MIG wire does pretty decent at doing that. So I'm not going to complain. I am going to get a actual link to go on it, but this does just fine for right now. even with it rubbing on the inside of here, it didn't break the MIG wire that I had up there for the 2 days of grinding that I did, and the link that was up here was off. So kind of hard to compare because of the amount of time, but I kind of like the MIG wire idea better. Basically, it's going to be hard for me to do this and show you at the same time. Basically, what I'll do is I'll take and I'll wrap around these two individually. I'll do a wrap around that one, then a wrap around that one, and then I'll bring it back together. So it'll have 3 or 4 wraps around each piece here. I don't know how well you can see. I don't know about the lighting here, but yep, that's what I'm going to do now. Once I get done with that, then I'll come up here, put all the nuts and bolts back on, and then we'll tighten everything back up and get it like it should be. Like I said before, this seems to be going extra well today. I was not expecting to go like this, but I'm also not done yet, so we could run into a hiccup. I've got a decent amount of slack over here on the chain, so we'll be able to pull the mid shaft up some, which as you can tell, it's got to go up. We're going to put the bolts back in. I went ahead and pulled the nuts that were messed up. They're over there, so I wouldn't get them mixed up. Now I need the top bolt and the extra nuts. I'm gonna go ahead and clean these threads up on these bolts. I try to register it with Vermeer, and Vermeer's records go back to 1988 or 87, something like that, and they're saying that they don't have any record of this machine as far as the serial number goes. So there's a possibility that that is the original chain. There is a possibility that these are the original bearings. I wouldn't think so, but there is that possibility. I don't think this is the original motor, being that it has an hour meter on it, a bunch of gauges, its own key switch and throttle and all that, whereas the original would have had it back here at the control panel for easy access while you're using it. So basically all I'm doing right now is tightening up these bolts here to pull the bearings back up against this metal plate here where they're supposed to be. Not actually tightening them down because you want them to be able to move, but I do need them to be up against the plate to get an accurate gauge of tension on that chain. Now that we've gotten those somewhat tight, time to start setting tension. I'm excited about this because I don't know how well this is going to go. Like I said, everything's going good so far. This being somewhat the final step. How well is it going to work? All right, we've made contact. We're pushing the pulley up now. Question is, how far can I go? I really do need to soak this chain. So this chain has what they call auto luber. There's a big jug that's set up here and drop oil on the chain constantly. It's been gone, and I've been trying to do good about lubing this thing up, but I have not done the best, I'll be honest. And so if you look at this chain, it kind of holds a form to it where it's gotten hot and the links have gotten hot and loose, and then they cool down and they kind of cinch up. And with the chain cinched up like this, being as tight as it is, it's hard to get a true idea of what the tension is on it, because with it being tight like this, it seems like it's got plenty of tension on it. And I'm literally going to use all this PB Blaster. Probably should have been doing it all along. Normally what I'll do for lube on this is I'll spray WD-40 while I'm greasing the bearings and running it, and then when I go to the job and throughout the job, I will put a mixture of gear oil and regular oil. I'm sorry, not gear oil. I put a mixture of bar oil from the chain salt because it gives it that real sticky property, and I feel like it really hooks to the chain versus just straight motor oil. But I also put the motor oil in it because I know that when it does stick, it's got to have somewhat of a drip to it in order to get down through all the links. Because again, that chain is still somewhat tight until I can run it and get that oil worked into it to loosen it back up. Actually, it's getting pretty loose right now. I will put some more tension on that. Tell you what, man, PB Blast and WD-40 will do some amazing things. Does it feel like it's getting dark to you? Feels like it's getting dark to me. The sun's already behind the shop, and I'm willing to bet it's not even 4 o'clock yet. I absolutely despise this time of year. I'm a summer person. I would rather sweat and fight bugs than to deal with the sun going down early and being freezing cold. I'm actually hoping this stump grinder gets a little more powerful, I guess you would say. Like I explained earlier in the video, that slack on the front side of that chain causes lag. So, and this is just through my eyes, I may be wrong. If I am, please explain it in the comments. But that lag in the front side of that chain allows for a brief moment of this thing meeting resistance before that slack gets loose, and then the motor is able to pull the top gear to spin that tension over to the other side and keep the momentum going. It makes sense in my head. Don't know if it quite makes sense to y'all, but let me know what you think. When I'm looking at this mid shaft and trying to see if it's somewhat level, keep from pulling these bearings apart, is the fact that we're somewhat sitting on a hill and this tire has a hole that it falls into. I gotta get my hands clean so I can even figure out what time it is, but pretty sure I gotta go pick my son up. I wanted to go ahead and get these done today. I might do them when I get back, and of course it'll be dark then, it'll be late, so I don't know if I'll get it on video or not. But I'm gonna take these 4 bolts off, just clean them up real quick, slap some Loctite on them and tighten them down, and that will get us up and running. Except for, now that we've moved the chain, the mid shaft bearings down, the belt is now tight in the non-engaged position, so now I'm gonna have to adjust the belt tensioners in the back so this will get back loose. That's just how these machines work. You start down there and you work your way all the way through the drive system. So we might be up and running Friday, I don't know. I'll get home Friday morning from the fire department and wrench on this thing for a little bit and then go grind. I will say one of the other things I wanted to do was when I did the valve adjustments on this motor, I didn't have the gaskets for the valve covers, so I just put them back up there, and I'm starting to see where they are absolutely leaking, and I already have oil leaking from the dipstick, which I still have not fixed. So I ordered the gaskets for these. They were like $8 a piece. I went ahead and ordered 8 of them. That way I have 4 to replace, and then I have 4 extra. That was kind of pricey, and then plus shipping. They got here quicker than I thought, but these old motors are pricey when it comes to parts. Again, when you buy something old, you got to spend the money to keep it going. But I can promise you, buying something old and spending a couple $100 here and there is nowhere near the amount of payments I would have spent this year on something that does this amount of work. I don't even think I've spent the money in this machine this year to cover the payments on my RG37. And that's a pretty low payment for a stump grinder. So I was able to find a big can of PB Blaster that I had left over. I went ahead and sprayed half the can in this chain. It's got the nice straw on it, so I was able to get into some places I was not able to earlier. I'm going to get you over here in a minute. Once I get my hands cleaned up and I can grab the camera, I'll get you over here and explain everything. Now that I got my hands cleaned up and I can hold the camera, I went ahead and sprayed this big bottle here. I went ahead and sprayed half of it on the chain. And what I mean by tight is, so if this is loose, this chain is going to be straight in a line, but you can kind of see, like right here on this chain, this link's leaning that way, This link's going that way. It's holding tension in a certain direction and it's not letting go. This is a little bit tighter than I want. You want to have the flexibility the same width as the chain, and I somewhat have that, but I just feel like it's really tight, and for me not to have the auto luber, this is going to produce some serious heat that I'm worried about. But what I plan on doing is running the machine and hopefully these loosening up like they're supposed to be, and if they do, then that should create a good amount of slack. I'm going to also spray that PB blaster on it while it's moving. Do it at low RPMs, make sure everything falls slack like it's supposed to. But ever since I've had this machine, this back chain has always ridden on the metal guard here. You heard it non-stop. It would just sit there and ride on it and grind it. You can kind of see the indents down here where it's even gotten so loose it rides up in there. And I'm pretty sure that comes from that lag, that slack hitting the stump and that extra slack going up under there. Also, it got really slack to the point that this was slapping on the front guard, and that's why this front guard has been out. So what I'm hoping, dang, that thing's got some tension on it. Hopefully it's not tension too much that it keeps pulling that sprocket in. But what I'm hoping is that we're at a good tension for a low RPM idle, get everything turning, get the chain to loosen up, and I think that's going to be the exact point where I want it as far as tension goes. Once it does that, then I'll come back up here, pull this thing out of this hole, and make sure that mid shaft is as straight as I can get it. That's going to play a big part in saving what is left of the life of these bearings. Yep. So it's about 4:20. I got a little bit more time out here to work on stuff. I don't think I'm going to get to the hydraulic thing right now. Well, I'm going to get my tools cleaned up and probably call it evening. I am pretty much done for the day as far as videoing, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you on the next one. Y'all have a good one.